What we drove a little bit south of, when we came from Ad Halom, and on the 22nd, between the 15th of October until the 22nd, the Israeli army managed to push the Egyptian army all the way back to Gaza, and to get them to this line. This line is a major road that would have connected from Gaza all the way over to so up until this point is where the Egyptian army kind of retracted to, except for along the retracted all the way back until Gaza. And on the 22nd, when the ceasefire was supposed to come into place, the Egyptian army still occupied this fortress over here. This fortress is called a Tegard fortress. It's very similar. There's a lot of them that happened all throughout the British Empire at the time. And this is exactly the same design as you would find in Latrun, okay? So the army, the Israeli army, already had some existence, had some understanding of what was the inside of this fortress look like and how to attack it. And what they did is after the 22nd of October until, you know, in the coming weeks and etc., even though there was supposed to be a ceasefire that was in place, essentially what the Israeli army did was bombard this fortress, okay, where the Egyptian army was still. And what they tried to do was also encircle behind, okay? So the Egyptian army was camped in this area and further to the left, and what the Israeli army did was continue down further south and then encircle in the back, okay? And what they tried to do was block off all the supply lines, any Egyptian convoys coming from either from Gaza, or to block off the the supply lines that could have been coming from Hebron, okay? And what happened was, and I'll read about this in a second, there was also attacks by the army, the Israeli army, on similar police fortresses, not that look like this, but there were also police fortresses at places like Beit Gufri, okay? So earlier on, before this whole process took place, this road continues on directly through Beit Gufri, and they tried to break the supply lines over there. So what you see is, even though the truce went into effect at 3 o'clock on October 22nd, there was still a lot of fighting in this area. And you can see that this fortress stands in a very strategic point, you know, very much at a major thoroughfare. What you consider as all these different areas, they're major thoroughfares. So the 4 is a major thoroughfare, which is why there was train lines in that area. This is a major thoroughfare, and the 40 road, which we're going to see in a second, is also a major thoroughfare that even existed from a very long time ago. So how did the Israeli army take this area? Okay, this is now called Yoav's Fortress in honor of Operation Yoav. But it was originally called the police station of what was called Iraq al-Manshia, okay? Which is the name of a town that we're going to get to in a little bit, okay? Manshia, Sudan, yeah, it was another area, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so this area, what they did is they bombarded it with the bombers that they had. The Israeli army had a couple different airplanes, so they struck it with air support from above. And finally, this was taken over by the Israelis on the 9th of November. And what happened was that this became a ceasefire line for the Egyptian army to come here for multiple different attempts to try and negotiate a peace treaty between the Egyptians and the Israelis. Okay, so what happened was that this area was that there was 2 major figures that were here that were in battle over here. One of them was named Colonel Taha, who was part of the Egyptian army, and his second in command was Gamal Nasser. Nasser was also over here. So both of them came over here, and Yigal Allon was here as well, and they tried to negotiate peace treaties in this area and at Kibbutz Gat, a little bit further on. Okay, and I actually happen to have a picture over here which I want you to take notice of. And I'll show you another picture that looks very similar to this. But this is the Israeli army looking slightly from the north, looking south at this area, and you'll see that the land is barren. Why? In part, why is it barren? Okay, because we're talking about the winter time. Okay, in the wintertime there wouldn't have been a whole lot plowed over here. And you can see the fortress, and there's a picture of the air raid strikes that took place at Yoav, at the fortress of Yoav. Today, the fortress is now the memorial for Chativa Givati, just like the 8th Battalion and the Armored, the Shiryon, has their memorial at Latrun. So Givati, the memorial for Givati, and this whole Yoav fortress that was basically up until the 9th of November, there's a memorial for that over here. It's a great museum, which you guys can check out once it's actually open at some point. And you can go see it. Traces all the battle of all the different small villages that were overtaken up until this point. So I'm going to stop now. And the next place that we're going to go to, we're going to re-meet with the Egyptian army, because basically the Egyptian army, there was a remnant of around 4,000 soldiers of the Egyptian army that encamped just a little bit further east of here, and that was what became known as Kis Faluja. Okay?